Hey everybody, it's Zena. I'm so excited to be doing this because I wasn't sure we were going to get this far this summer, but I'm so glad to be here today to talk to you about safe boundaries. We usually do this talk all together, so this is all going to be new for me. I'm a social worker, and I have also worked in camp for many, many years. I've worked with Kaleva for many years. Most of you probably know me. I have worked at several different camps, been a camp director, etc. And now I'm also a mother, and I have 2 campers that you will meet hopefully this summer. Today we're going to talk about some things that can be very difficult to talk about. If things come up for you when we're talking about child abuse and other types of situations that maybe some of us have experienced, or we know someone who's been through those experiences, it's really, really important that we pay attention to how we are feeling, that we pay attention to what comes up for us and get help. You can talk to me, you can talk to a supervisor, you can, certainly if you have a therapist or someone else, just make sure that you are not ignoring whatever those feelings are that come up for you, okay, or experiences. So even though we can't meet in person, we are going to be able to still have our talk, and it'll be a little bit different. I'm going to try doing things differently. I tried starting this inside and it was all wrong. I could not talk to you from inside. I realized that we have to have this outside. So I don't have a lot of good angles, but I'm trying. One of the things that's going to be different today, usually we talk about Bob did her video, and hopefully you're still watching Bob to get the basics. But one of the things that I'm going to be adding this year is information on quarantine and coming out of quarantine. There is a lot going on in the world, and this is a very disorienting time. You are going to be the first people to have children in groups. And so there are some issues that may come up, they may not, but I want you to be prepared. Be ready for whatever those are, and certainly ask questions about your thoughts, concerns, being prepared for whatever comes. Well, Kaleva has always been and always will be a place for kids to explore and stretch and grow. Your role at camp is to be the protector. You are protecting each other, you're protecting the children, you're protecting the program. So when you go into the summer, you really want to think, okay, what is my primary role? Yes, I also teach rock climbing and biking, and I'm going on this wonderful LIT or this camping trip or whatever it is. But before any of those things can happen, it has to be safety first. I always say I never want to see you on the news for a safety issue. We did have a little bit of that last summer. Things happen, and I think this summer especially, things could appear from the outside different than what they are. You have to know what your expectations are, follow them to the letter, and be prepared for somebody from the outside in the community seeing what you're doing and possibly having concerns. So I am also going to do 2, I think, question and answer sessions, maybe one for general staff, one for adventure camps, overnight trips. So if you have questions, I don't have a chat box or one of those things right here, right now, but I really do want to hear from you. And usually people ask me all kinds of wonderful questions when we're in person. So I really hope that you will go ahead and write down your questions while I'm talking, or type them, or whatever you do these days, and then send them in to Lucy, or save them for I think we're doing a Zena Zoom. So you can ask me in person after you've watched this video. Move over here because I like more green. What is child abuse? We're just going to start right in there because we want to make sure that we have all the clear definitions so we know what we're all talking about. There are 4 types of abuse: physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, then there's neglect. Remember, the main point here, you are a mandated reporter. That means anybody who is in contact working with children is required to make a report if they have any suspicion of sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, or neglect. So what that basically means is you don't have to have any proof of anything. You're not there, you're not an investigator, you just need to alert someone. So at Kaleva, what that looks like is you go to your supervisor right away. It could be a phone call in the middle of the day, since the structure is going to be different, and say, so-and-so told me X. I'm very concerned about this. Or you may say, this kid keeps making sexually inappropriate jokes for their age. I'm concerned that could be a red flag. And so you want to be sure that you're bringing all of those things up to supervisors immediately. At that point, you and the supervisor, or the supervisors together, or they bring me in and we discuss what's the best course of action. Usually, we make a call to the Child Protective Services. Most of the time, it's not like a SWAT team comes in and drags the child out of the house. It's really more of a matter of getting that information to the proper authorities so that they can pool all the information they have, make a determination of what the best course of action is. It may not be that your report is the one that causes an investigation, but over time, you don't know. Maybe there was a report from school, maybe there was a report from a tutor or a coach. So you want to be sure that, we are doing our part in reporting things that are of concern. So the way you can be a solution to this epidemic, really, of child sexual abuse is by speaking up, and all kinds of abuse. So we just have to act quickly and thoughtfully and carefully. And so I'm here to help if any of those things come up. But again, what do you do if a child does share an abuse experience with you? Or again, they may not see it that way, but is inappropriate. So first thing you do, we talked about this, Bob talks about this, you stay calm. Your reaction is sometimes the first thing that those kids have ever experienced as a form of feedback to the situation. So you definitely want to stay calm, non-judgmental. Don't get, angry or, tell them why this is so terrible. They have their own perception of the situation, and our job is to simply let them know gently that this is of concern and that you're concerned about their safety. You always want to make it clear that you believe whatever they're saying, whether it sounds completely impossible or outlandish or something that you just can't even imagine. Maybe it's somebody and you just think, well, that couldn't even be possible. Sometimes kids mix things up in their minds, so something may sound a little bit strange, but again, you always indicate to the child that you believe them and that you're pleased that they're sharing with you, because that's the main thing. We want to make sure that kids feel safe sharing with us as their support people. It's also important to recognize that you're not a therapist and you're not there to process and work this whole thing out. That's a huge job, which could take a very long time. And your main job is to be a kind, responsive, safe adult. And if they ask for secrecy, you, again, as we've talked about in the past, you cannot promise secrecy. In fact, you don't want to, because you want to get them the help they need. And if they get upset about that, you can simply explain to them that, it is your job and your role to support them, and the best way to support them is to make sure that they're safe. I've had kids, not at Kaleva, but other programs, who disclose something and then threaten to run away because the counselor said, well, I need to share this with someone to make sure you're safe. So there can be those kind of responses, and we have to be able to support the kids and work with them. Okay, I needed to change the scenery. More trees, more better. Okay, let's see if my phone doesn't fall. So, how do you protect yourself from an accusation? First of all, never to be alone with campers. This year, you may say, well, we only have 2 counselors. There's hardly anybody around. How are we going to make that work? You can take multiple kids with you if there's a bathroom break, if you need to set up tents or whatever you're doing, set up boats. If you have Instagram or Facebook, I know there's like 2 people that have Facebook still. Snapchat, I don't know, TikTok, I learned a new one. You absolutely do not want to communicate with them on any platform in private. So an instant message or a DM or I don't know what these other things are called, but any messages that disappear, Snapchat, totally out. You always have to be able to say whatever communication you had, if they do reach you online, was clear in the light of day. Everybody could see it. There was nothing private. You can CC a supervisor. If a camper were to email you or text you or whatever, I would loop someone else in so that there was no question about how things were handled, whether it was appropriate, and what your behavior was. Relationship boundaries. So again, these are your campers. These are your coworkers. You want to have good boundaries. Modeling good boundaries. Obviously, we're having social distance boundaries, so that helps somewhat. But some of the kids, it may be very hard for them. You know, they may know in their mind, oh, I'm not supposed to touch, I'm not supposed to get this close. Kids don't know what 6 feet apart is. Adults don't seem to know what 6 feet apart is. So, you know, we need to be patient and we need to be modeling for them what the expectations are. So here we are. The kids are all online all the time. So even more than before, you know what I love to see online on your profile? Puppies and hiking trips, okay? You want to be sure that, again, your online presence reflects appropriately your role as a counselor and Kaleva. You want to represent Kaleva in the best light possible. Keep your private life private. This could also be another, you know, temptation when you're spending a lot of time with the kids and you're in this smaller group. There's a more level of an intimacy that is created. And the kids may start asking you more than usual, you know, about personal things. It may be harder to keep them as busy as it was when you had council and group lunches and bus rides and all that stuff. You just want to be remembering all the time, wait a minute, I'm the counselor. It's not important who I'm dating. It's definitely not important, you know, what my grades were, how much money I'm making, or any of those things. Those are private for your private life. There are plenty of ways of letting them get to know you better without breaching boundaries on certain topics. We keep the topics neutral, okay? We're not going to get into political, religious discussions, you know, especially now. There's always so much going on, so I can't even say especially now, but I'll say it anyway. Especially now, there are so many issues going on. Most of these kids just need to get out into the woods or on the water and play. Oh, here comes my favorite topic. Seems so far out of what's been going on, but it's still going to happen. Kids develop crushes on counselors. Since we've all had crushes, I hope, everybody can relate to this experience. It is not to be ashamed of or anything like that. It's expectable and it's fine. However, it can escalate to a point where it becomes challenging for a group. And it can also become a problem if there is a perception that you are feeding into that crush or favoring a certain camper, or if you are, you know, avoiding them or rejecting them. So I always say, don't crush the crush. That is not the plan, okay? The plan is, remember my app plan? So funny. I have 3 A's in there. Acknowledge. You have to acknowledge that it's happening. You may not really realize that somebody is having a crush on you. So you need to support each other as coworkers to say, this is starting to look a little bit like it's going in that direction. So if you see it happening to a coworker, mention it. Analyze your behavior, okay? Make sure that you are not giving any confusing messages. We all like to be liked. We all like some campers better than others. It's just normal personalities. You know, you might mesh with somebody. more than another. But the fact is that if you lean into that kind of relationship, it could give the very wrong message. So you want to be sure that you are not confusing that camper or other campers or counselors about what your role is and what your intentions and feelings are. Alert your coworkers. Get help. Call the supervisor. Oh, no body talk. My favorite. I have a lot of favorites. We don't talk about bodies. Easy, right? Sounds easy. We don't compliment. We don't criticize. We don't say, oh my gosh, you're so much taller. Wow, you're really muscular this year. Not necessary. All that will serve to do is raise self-consciousness and make the kids uncomfortable, and it makes all the other kids also uncomfortable. So the best policy is no body talk. Things like that you could say in a very well-meaning way could end up standing out to these kids for the rest of their life, and you don't want to be that person. Even if you're just complimenting a hairstyle. When you're complimenting one kid, you're not complimenting the others, and they notice. So it's really more about giving positive feedback about actions that they choose to take, and that's much more meaningful, as well as you don't run the risk of as much comparison, because everybody knows that they can make those choices too. If a child is getting their period, if that's new for them, if they don't know how to manage water sports and feminine hygiene products, you're going to have those things on hand and be comfortable to have those conversations. If kids are not following social distancing or they're very clingy, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, kids may be extra anxious. You want to gently remind them about why you're keeping distance and how to be appropriate with their physical body. And again, it starts with modeling. You want to be firm and friendly. You don't want to make somebody feel bad for reaching over and grabbing somebody to give them a hug, or, pulling someone over to wrestle. But you also want to be clear what's safe and appropriate at camp, and especially this summer, that we are keeping safe distance as well as safe boundaries. But if you do touch children, which you probably won't be, but if you did, because of course sometimes you have to, the 3 safe places to touch are on the shoulder, the right here, whatever that is, upper back, and the upper arm. Okay, so this is all you get. You may never touch a child anywhere where their bathing suit is covering. And as I always point out, my bathing suit goes way down to my knees. So that was a lot, just to show the bathing suit. No laps, there's going to be no hugging probably. If there was, it would be side hugs as usual. Hand holding, no. Some of these kids may be extra starved for attention, and that's just going to be the reality. They will have been home with probably working parents, stressed out parents for months, maybe one sibling, maybe no siblings. If there's a first aid situation, you will respond with touch as appropriate. I don't ever want to hear, well, I couldn't, treat this child's wound because I wasn't allowed to touch them. Okay, if they are injured in a place that covers the bathing suit, again, you want to be sure that you are not alone, that you are explaining to them exactly what you're doing, why you're asking permission, if they are able to give permission, and you want to be clear about why you're doing what you're doing. When in doubt, ask for help. We are here to support each other. I'm here somewhere floating around. I'll even be IRL sometimes. Okay, so change of scenery. Quarantine. This is my new section on quarantine. Okay, we've never had to talk about this before. I hope we never have to talk about it again. But for now, we do need to recognize that there are some elements of this summer that are going to be different, and the experience that kids are coming from straight into your care are completely different than any other year ever. So I just wanted to touch on a few things. Some of these things you may see, you could be like, none of that ever happened. I hope it doesn't happen, but I'm also aware that we need to be tuned in to these issues. So anxiety, lots of different types of anxiety that could come up this summer. For the first thing, anxiety about germs, about sickness, about contracting an illness. This is a very valid, of course, and real anxiety for everyone. So the kids are going to be at totally different, varying levels of awareness about this, of concern about it. We have no idea what their parents have been telling them, what kinds of protocols they've used at home. I assume that any kids who are coming to camp are healthy enough to be at camp, or their parents feel comfortable enough to send them in the first place. So you've already got a group of kids who have been cleared by their parents to be in a social setting. However, they're also probably sending them and telling them, but don't touch anyone, and don't share lunch, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do this. So these are really real fears, and some kids are going to be expressing them, and it may not be in the way that you expect it. It may not be a verbal confirmation of anxiety or fear, but it may be just in some behaviors that you might see that may not even be clear, and you might have to ask some questions. A lot of this is taking those anxieties seriously. Whatever your feeling is about coronavirus, whatever your belief is about how it's been handled or what's going on, you need to be sensitive to where the campers are, whatever their feelings are, and validating their anxiety. So if they start to feel nervous to share equipment or whatever it is, that's okay. You can talk to them about it. Ask them, how do you feel most comfortable using this paddle or these ropes? If you need to use a wipe to clean it off, what are the things you do at home to keep yourself safe from this virus? So every kid is going to have something different to say. Maybe they bring their hand sanitizer and they are using it all the time. Some kids may say, oh, I hate my hand sanitizer, it stinks, I don't want to use it. You're going to have to broach a new issue with all of these kids. And we need to be really vigilant. If they're supposed to be wearing a mask on the bus, then we need to support them in wearing the mask on the bus. And if they are not complying, not to shame or blame them, but to really understand, why are you not wearing the mask? Do you understand that we can't all be on the bus together without that? And if it's a matter of their mask is uncomfortable, or it smells bad because whatever, it got into the lake, or who knows what. Sometimes it just takes a couple of questions to figure out what is really at the bottom of something. And this is going to be one of those times. You don't want your campers going home and saying, oh no, nobody was wearing their masks on the bus, or hand sanitizer, nobody washed their hands all day. So again, this is about keeping the kids safe, it's about keeping you safe, but it's also about the reputation of the camp. Most camps are not opening at all. So if we're even open, it will be an amazing thing. And the last thing we want is to have anybody question the judgment or the capability of the camp of doing their very best to keep kids safe. So that means you have to follow every single protocol to the letter, whether you think you need it or not. If it's hand washing, you're hand washing. If it's hand sanitizer, you're using it. We have to model for the kids what we expect, and that needs to be, of course, taken seriously, and I'm sure other people are talking about that. Other types of anxiety. Social anxiety. If a child has already been prone to social anxiety or challenged with social skills, this is the moment that you are going to see it, and you're going to be the first ones. They have not interacted except online with anybody for months. So you're really going to be seeing, maybe they just hop out there and they're resilient and they're kids and it doesn't really make any difference and you don't see any difference. I'll be very curious to hear from you. But for some kids, remembering how to operate within a group is going to be a challenge. And maybe the first couple days or hours are awkward and tricky for some kids. And then, maybe after that, it's fine. But you just want to be, again, helping coach them through, making new friends again. What's okay? How do you show a greeting when you have a mask on? How do you show, I encourage you to make some kind of a hand symbol or gesture that you can all do that doesn't involve touching, that shows like, some people use this for me too, or, like something like this for applause. So some way that you are building community, building connection, without the usual physical high fives and elbow bumps even that we're used to doing. The other thing that I think you could run into that's different this year is depression from kids and counselors. There's been a lot of loss, so there can be grieving. Depression in terms of literally being confined, not being in the routine, not being able to do sports, not being able to see friends. For an extroverted child, that's very difficult. For an introverted child, I can say from experience that even introverts are like, I'm so done with this time alone. It's enough. So it's going to be a challenge for everyone to sort of come out of their homes, but also not be all the way back to normal. So there can be, sort of a serotonin deficit, so to speak. You haven't been able to do the things that bring you joy necessarily for some kids. Sadly, many campers will have known somebody who passed away or is ill, or that they're worried would become ill, or grandparents or family members that they haven't been able to see who've been very important in their lives. That feels like a loss, even if the person is alive, but they haven't been able to interact with them. So teachers, for obviously we think of all the graduates who've had, their year challenged and not what they were expecting, but, even a third grader not being able to say goodbye to their teacher, or a 10th grader or whoever, not being able to see their friends and to have a school play or whatever those things are. So everybody is experiencing some type of loss from this experience, from all the way from the loss of life to the loss of something which may seem small, but, was important to that person, a spring break, experience that they were looking forward to. We have a collective grieving for many things right now, but especially, as a nation, we are struggling through this situation and circumstance. We're struggling with our social issues, and kids are going to be tuned in and aware of this, and they need an escape. They need a chance to be at camp, but we can't just ignore these issues either. In some ways, more than ever before, people are going to be appreciating Kaleva and the community of Kaleva in whatever format that takes this summer. It will be such a gift to these kids to be able to be together safely. We all want this to go smoothly so it can carry on. And it's a time to really remember that this is the kind of community that we all have created. It takes all of you to create this community, and it takes every camper, and making it a safe place with excellent boundaries and expectations and clarity is what makes it so wonderful, and that I've been such a pleased to be such a part of it for so many years. We have to be extra vigilant, we have to be extra flexible, we have to be extra rested and on point and on focus to manage all these different circumstances on top of the things that usually come up, which are often challenging too. We're here to support you. You're the ones that are making it happen. It's going to be fun. It's going to be different. It's going to be great. And I really look forward to seeing you in person, talking to you on the Zena Zoom, and getting all your questions and hopefully being able to answer some of them. So anyway, it's great to see you. I'll talk to you hopefully soon. Bye.